remember the rest of this while I'm doing this. Yeah, I'm just gonna descend it goofy. At least it sounds decent, I guess. Yeah. I'll just deal with it for now. I hate time crunches. It happens. We'll K-Mac this. We'll K-Mac this. Anyways. But yeah. Black Sabbath, Paranoid. Finally getting to it. Wanted it to be a little more special. Like I had said in past other things I've done on this channel leading up to this. Yeah, there's a reason why this is a classic album. I mean, this coming out within a few months later after having done their self-titled, this was the time for them to come out. They were already starting to get traction given this title track off the self-titled album with the band's synonymous title track. I think that's the right term to use. And of course, NIB, Nativity in Black, being the songs that definitely showcase the idea of what their main core sound would be, but it didn't become more of a fruition until the first notes of this record being the most classic of them all. I should have started with that, but an easier song to learn is and try to get done quicker, hopefully, is Paranoid. And eventually I might do so. I'll try to teach my niece. Maybe I might do a video on it. I don't know if it's ever going to come to fruition, because it's a scheduling conflict. So you got to deal with that. And then trying to... She's dealing with her kid stuff, with her school, trying to... It's going to be rough, but hopefully we can figure something out in the future with it, so... But anyways, the album itself, this is a classic for a reason. I'm already going to just sprout it out there and just... Yes, it rocks. It's about the master class, obviously, and of the albums that have come out and had their, I believe, 50th anniversary at this point. And between the two, this is clearly the better choice of album and the one that would definitely be the easiest to get into for Black Sabbath, no matter who you are. And it's understandable to my boy why this is the case. Even though the more follow-up albums, more so than the one after this, will be considered more of a classic in terms of your more stoner rock, stoner metal, possibly sludge, but here nor there with that. Doom for sure, regardless, but in places, I wouldn't say full on, but I would say the more traditional aspect of what is heavy metal is pretty much here in this record that is spawned it out throughout the entire decade, more so than the self-titled debut had done months earlier. It was more a combination of the two albums in and of itself. And most people rather just more so talk about Paranoid because there was a lot more traction in singles, because of their lead up with War Pigs being a classic, although there's another the more instrumental outro thing is called something else, but most people just still stick with calling this thing War Pigs anyway. And then, of course, the title track that I attempted to play here would be was definitely, of course, still kicks ass, and I'd say is probably the closest in four-way to being, I'd say is the more proto-punky of tracks. Of your more hard rock, trad metal type tracks that essentially led to what we got here. That a lot of people will still talk about this. Most people will remember before the movies of Iron Man and all that was a thing. In fact, the song itself being considered by Stan Lee himself, the late great Stan Lee, rest in peace, as his inspiration to creating the character of Iron Man in of itself is this song. Granted, the lyrics are of a different story and I think are more in line with... I guess Iron Man is more specifically about I guess more of a knight in shining, more closer in line towards a knight in shining armor that was kind of this hero of a story that lived that in the case of what is said in the Dark Knight. Uh, yeah, they live long enough to be a hero, to die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, and that's what happened with this character in the story, which is a different thing from what we do get from Iron Man himself, from the Iron Man character. So, though it's a possibility there's a storyline at some point that kind of leads more closer to the lyricism that is given in this track, but and then but before that, I'm passing up the fact of Planet Caravan, which by most fans might be considered, and it depends on how you listen to it. I mean, apparently it works fine in my headset. I can hear it a lot better, but when you're trying to hear it like through a normal stereo speaker or anything like that, it just doesn't come out good for some reason. And or at least for the headset I'm charging up right now, it seems to sound fairly decent compared to before. But the thing is, but yet not a lot of people talk about that version that they created, and more people prefer the version that of which by 94 or 95. Actually, no, it's 94 because it was definitely that album came out that I'm thinking of from Pantera, in which this track was put on but they wanted to put it on a Black Sabbath tribute, but someone else took it, I guess, or they just didn't feel like putting it on there, and the band decided, why don't we put it on ourselves and end our record with it, in which works pretty well as far as I'm concerned with that album. That album being, which is Far Beyond Driven. I have it up there. Oh, and speaking of Pantera, I think I need to do something on that. I just thought of that. Actually, I just thought of it in a different video, but neither here nor there. But it's a classic. It's a nice, serene thing, and I think does give way to the more atmospheric aspect, more ambient metal, unintentionally. Even though it's a more jazz bluesy track that sort of has this sort of very atmospheric quality in an ambient or ambience or soundscapey kind of way, etherealness to it, if you will. That would, I think, many bands that are of the more because it's essentially more like a jazzy blues tune in a very ambient, with a very ethereal ambient thing happening sonically going on throughout the track, in terms of like reverb, or soundscaping of some sort. And it seems the Pantera did a better job with this, or at least giving it a better, of paying homage to its original, while giving it the facelift it apparently needed to allow people to actually give it the chance to be listened to, and pretty much set the standard of how the song should be done from there forward. And that's like the only song that would be considered by some standards. And plus, I guess it seems in other settings when you listen to it, like if you're not got a good pair of headphones, you won't be able to hear it the way you should, or at least if you're hearing it in vinyl, is probably the best way too. But these remastered versions through CD, and if you don't have a good stereo speaker that's meant to pick up on things more dynamically, I guess you probably won't be. It just won't work as well, and that's another issue with that. With a lot of this record, in certain places, some tracks just don't pop out as much unless you. It seems to these remasters seem to cater a lot more to the heavier riffs of the record, and all the quieter moments just feel buried in the mix. But yet not so much when you hear it in ear. It's something weird about it, and I'm starting to wonder that about certain other albums from like a band like King's X or something. Check them out, I guess, if you want. I mean, if Pain of Salvation recommends them, I guess that's not a bad thing for all you prog guys. But as far as the follow-up tracks have been, and of course, besides Iron Man, which is a classic in of itself, I've already said that one. The follow-up tracks, there's one that's a more very Hendrixy, that name is off the bat does escape me for some reason. I'm forgetting the name of it. I tried memorizing this, though I do remember another track that could be what led to the idea of the term doom metal in Hand of Doom, but that's more about how Idle Hands are Devil's Playground, and his idle hands are more have an issue with more related towards the drug issues that it seems that hasn't maybe to some point still plagued Ozzy and had plagued the band for years on end, and even from that point forward. And then there's a lot of varied Doors and still a lot of Doors and Hendrix influences here. Definitely not as much Zeppelin going on with this record, despite what other tracks would do. And there's an instrumental Rat Salad, and then there's this, and then the final track that, of course, ends this. That is one of the more classic tracks, and is more so sort of a stoner track in of itself. That I think may have eventually led to a track like Sweet Leaf off their follow up, but despite my feelings overall of what I can tell you, it's still one of the better. This is definitely one of their best this so far. From going through the discography thus far, at least, this is definitely a classic for a reason, and is what put the band on the map more so than the self-titled ever did. And there was just no going. It was either going downhill or more upward from there for them. And their follow-up album, definitely Sweet Leaf, was definitely the album which would have Sweet Leaf and Into the Void. We'll get more into that when I finally do get to that one, and I'll actually have some fun playing that one when I can. And it's overall, of course, classic record. Fairies Wear Boots is one of my favorite. Fairies wear boots and you gotta believe me. And apparently that was, I think, that taught me how to play, or at least tried to teach me this one back in the day. And I had to relearn it myself eventually over time. Was from Ian himself, and the Sabbath was a band he kept talking about. And Ozzy is definitely one of the best. I mean, it took a while for people wanted this Ryan James Dio, but Dio was actually pushed the band forward a little bit during his time in a way that maybe you could say Miles Kennedy kind of did for what was once of Creed. I mean, put it that way, though the difference is that Alter Bridge is still going, as opposed to Creed anyway, and it's not so much the whole same band issue kind of a thing that somehow, to a certain extent, Van Halen, or more so what some fans say Van Hagar, but would have said when it came to Eddie. But as far as this album, it's an overall, like I said, masterpiece. Those tracks are fun. I just don't know why I'm blanking on some of the other ones which is weird, but I know from what I've heard has sounded amazing. Even the Rat Salad little instrumental penultimate track is good, bleeding into Fairies Wear Boots. So, but yeah, there's a lot of definite classics. Like the deep cuts are definitely worth checking out as well. It's not just the singles. Singles help to build this record, but it's that. And overall, like I said, rocks with masterclass certification, as is to be expected. So, from this album, and it's definitely worth going back and spinning over and over again. There's a reason why many of publications have put this album high up on a lot of lists, or at least managed to make them fit somewhere in a top 100, if not a top 10, or in a top 10, in a top 100, if not a top 50, and if not a top 25, top 10, so on, so forth. what did you guys think of this album? Did you like my review? Ish. Do you think I need more practice? Probably. And you don't really have to answer that. The answer is yes, but I'll try to do better with the next ones I'm going to do. Jesus. Ugh. But anyways, that's it. That's it. If you like this review, leave a like. Heck, while you're at it, hit the subscribe button. Click the notification bell to get more. Also, link in the description for Smatt. This was more of something I wanted to plan on doing, and it was slightly, sort of ish, offhandedly a request for the Smasher Kevin Smets, who's unfortunately going through his cancer situation. For those who have kept up with my Showdown Rock stuff, you know what's going on with that, because you're a Schmodown fan yourself. Black Sabbath fans, you probably don't know, but it's his favorite band, and this is his favorite album from them. That's why I covered this. And if I didn't do them justice, because my brain fucking sucks compared to yours, I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm sorry. Just apologies ahead. Apologies. Yes, if I didn't do as well justice, but no, I mean, it's stupid for me not to, and I like the record, so I mean, it'd be stupid not to, given the pedigree of this album anyway. And it does live up to said pedigree, even its deep cuts. Even if my brain decides to blank on it offhand without having something in front of you. But there's your BTS for that. But I like this record. It still kicks ass. And yeah. Overall, I like this album. And hopefully, also link in the description to the Smasher's GoFundMe that Paul and that his friends Paul Press and John Kaiser helped build up for him. There should still probably be a link to the Smashathon channel anyway if you want to check out some of the stuff. I think maybe the beginning video, which will still have some things on what he's going through, I guess, outside of what he's mentioned on Send Live or something, in which there's a clip for that, I guess. I don't feel like leaving a description. That's too depressing. Drawing a page for him and all this other stuff. It's I'm oofing that whole announcement. Anyways, also link to the Facebook page. Like, follow me there. And yeah. The Rockers Movies with Tyler. I'm Tyler. Asking you to keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, y'all.